Hello and welcome back to another video. This is Korahor. I wanted to give an updated budget version of this so that you can see me spending less than a div, and I'll show you all of the trade links in the description and pull those over after we do a map. Here's a tier 15 map. It has just the prefix modifiers on the corrupted, so it's not like overly negatively juiced. Just so you can see a standard tier 15 map of what it looks like when we go in and do that. So the items is at Series Acuity, Collapsing Horizon, Cold Damage Ring, 50 Spirit Amulet with some attributes to get everything covered. I got all of those 4 pieces of gear for under 1 div. The rest of it would be defenses and stuff like that, so you would be spending that money anyway on any other build to solve defenses on helmet, chest, boots, belt. But all of those pieces of gear that I just highlighted would be under a div. So we'll hop straight into a map so that you can see what that looks like. Couple of keynotes here. I have 6 passives unallocated, and a lot of my passives are set up for my end game build that I'm using. None of this is really optimized. I have way more crit than I need in this tree. My jewel sockets are empty. I'm not using any of my super expensive jewels. And my tooltip is only 17k with charge staff attached as the only buff. So as you can see, with less than a div, I'm still flying through tier 15 maps like there is no tomorrow. So really, it should not be a problem for you all to be getting to tier 15 maps on less than a div in budget. It does take some getting used to. You may have to play with where, what skill gems go where, just to make sure that everything is honky-dory and you're procking everything that you need to proc. But as long as you're procking everything you need to proc, your maps will still look like this. And acceleration shrines are still just as satisfying as a end game version of this build. An end game version of this build just doesn't leave rares up. It does more boss damage. It clears faster. And this is already clearing insanely fast. And here we are at the boss so that you can get an idea of what the boss is going to look like. And it still deletes map bosses. So that said, I don't have map boss tiers unlocked in the Atlas. That was just the base map boss, just so that you can have an idea of what it looks like initially for you to continually clear map bosses. Obviously, over time, you'll upgrade that map boss and go from there. So this next part of the video, I'm going to be pulling over my browser tabs to show you some of the stuff that I was looking at for the 4 main pieces of gear that really get you started down this path of starting out with this build. So the very first thing and the most important version of this starter build is a Collapsing Horizon Worm Quarterstaff. You want to prioritize critical hit chance, and I've set the filter up to be 17.5%. Collapsing Horizon's Quarterstaff, not corrupted, so if you want to corrupt it for a 3rd socket, you can. But that way you have, oh, okay, here's all of my critical hit chances, and I can get these for anywhere from 5 to a chaos to 10x, and then you can kind of pick one that looks the best to you and go from there. So that's the first one. The next one we have to help keep us healthy because of the instant leech for ES and really maintain our mana is going to be at Zeri's Acuity. This obviously gives great critical hit chance. It gives us some good stats with intelligence, and leech from critical hits is instant. So there's some up for 5x, and there's a ton up for 5x or chaos or 8 exalted. Super easy to pick one of these up. It doesn't need to be 50% critical hit chance. Having a socket's probably pretty nice because then you can put some resistances in here or rage on hit or whatever you want. But that's the second piece. So we're up to like 20x if you get, a more preferred version of both of those items. So 20x combined. Then we have the rings. And the filters I have on this is elemental resistances, leech physical attack damages mana, and 25 cold damage to attacks. 3x, 1 chaos, 20x, 5 chaos, 30x. So the rings are going to be the most expensive part of this, but you can easily pick up a pair of these. If you don't need the elemental resistances, then you can just take that off and you can really find rings for like 5x as well. But I'm a realist and I know that you're probably going to be putting elemental resistances on your rings, so you can expect to spend 25x per those. So now grand total for 2 rings, at Series Acuity, Collapsing Horizon Quarterstaff, we're at 80 Exalted. That's half of a Divine right now. And then lastly, we have the Solar Amulet, or any amulet that has 50 Spirit, and you can kind of pick and choose what makes the most sense. I did a bunch of attributes because I know that this build is attribute hungry. So with this build being attribute hungry, I put in here 23 all or 22 all attributes and weighted some 50 for spirit for both of these. So that way you guys can get attributes on here, and here's the spirit requirements for the build. 10 to 20 to 50x in that range. So let's just assume 50x worst case scenario. So 50x will get you into the range of 130 exalted, which is 30 exalted under 1 divine, really setting you up to be able to start mapping for under 1 divine and absolutely destroying tier 15 maps with very little investment to really catapult and rocket you into pinnacle content, because you're going to be able to farm tier 15 maps very consistently. At Series Acuity, instant leech gauntlets are going to keep you extremely healthy with consuming questions. You're always going to be capped with your energy shield. I also have no evasion, and I stayed pretty healthy through a tier 15 map. I don't recommend doing no evasion, but that's just giving you an idea. I know that my energy shield is pretty chunky, but you guys can figure out your defenses and get around with, hey, is it EV? Is it ES? Is it, what is it? I think the big benefit of Acolyte or Chayula, and something that I want all of the newer players to be thinking of, is to be working on stun threshold as energy shield. So this self-mortification, asceticism, abasement, shimmering mirage, all of these are super important early on as you learn to solve stun threshold, because that's one of the things you want to look to solve. And that's what enables me to just not get stunned in maps and go straight energy shield instead of having any evasion. So late I early on recommend doing subterfuge mask, because getting like a 350 ES helmet gives you like 30% evasion, so 1 of 3 hits are not going to hit you, which is obviously really great. Gives you that 33% like boost to your defenses. But I've graduated to doing mostly energy shield, and you guys can do that too. In some of my next videos, I'm going to continue highlighting some of the end game changes that I'm making to really min-max this. And as a teaser, I did craft a pretty incredible staff that I'm extremely proud of right here. So I'll highlight how I made this staff and how you guys can work to make similar staves. Endgame crafting is expensive, but I'll explain how I made this staff, and that will be in a future video. Join the Discord, subscribe to the YouTube. I would really appreciate if you subscribe to help me hit 1,000 subscribers. We're almost there. I think we'll hit 600 tonight. Thanks so much for all the support from everyone, and I hope you enjoy this 1 div budget update. I'll link to the original videos so that you can see all of the mechanics at play, as well as the max roll guide so that you can see where you want to get to after you start with some of the basics here. Thanks, everyone.